So I wanted to show you the before and after of a design effect. And this design effect we'll call like painting with wool or a watercolor effect. So we're going to start with our base, and this is our base, and it is this color of wool roving. It's a medium blue. It's wet, and so it looks a little bit darker. And we are going to create something like this kind of art effect where it looks like a watercolor. And here's another one. And you can see it's brush strokes. And here's a wool example of that where it looks a little bit like brush strokes. And here's another example where you can see the sky and the ocean and the water was created with watercolor like brush strokes. So before we get to the actual picture, we'll finish our background. And since it was a light blue, now I'm going to take some darker blues and just create some shadows in the background. And you pull out the wool like this and spread it out so that it's sort of evenly spread out and wispy. And you can lay it on top. And then you have to dry your hands sometimes. So let's see that again. If you have a big clunk of roving, you can split it in half and go to the end where it's all wispy. Take it with your hand like this. And that's called pulling out a shingle. So we pulled out a shingle just to create some shading, and I'm putting it down on our background, but not in very heavy shingles because I just want some light effects. So I'll take that medium color blue and put it over there, put it around, and I'll take the darker blue to create some shadows, maybe in the bottom of the picture. So the bottom of the picture is here facing me. So if I know that's the bottom, I'll put more dark color there. And I'll take this other blue and I'm just getting some wisp. You can see how wispy they are. And the reason I don't want real heavy layers is because then it'll just, when we get to the felting part, the heavy layers will take much too long to felt and they'll be too clunky. So there we go, that's our background. So when you come to class next Tuesday, I'll go over the background of working with wool and how the wool works and the felting process, and we'll create this base background from scratch. So, but I wanted to jump into the middle of this process just so you could start looking for pictures that inspire you. Because if you bring something to class that you want to work with, it helps you get started. So this is a printout of a painting. It was on Google, and I liked it because it showed the brush strokes and it had not too many flowers. So that's something to think about for your first wool painting. And then I only wanted to do part of it because in a one-day class, doing all of this work would take too long. So you can always zoom in on part of the picture that you like. And I printed it out in black and white, so now I am completely able and free to be inspired by this and use any colors I want. So I like blue backgrounds for florals because I love to put leaves on with the florals. So blue works really nicely, and then we gave it some shadow. And now I can work with the leaves. So I wanted to put the leaves down before I put down the flowers. And so I take some wool roving and you can pull it apart like that. And this is going to be the stem. And sometimes you have to play with this stuff. You can roll it in your fingers to create a kind of a yarn, a piece of yarn. And then lay it down. And I'm looking at my reference photo, and so I can see I'm going to want to put it there. And one thing I forgot to do is that I wanted to wet down those loose blue fibers that I put on earlier. So now when you lay down more loose fibers, everything's just not just blowing around. So I'll take more green, pull it like that, and even split it apart, and then roll it between my hands, roll it in my fingers to create more skinny pieces and create my stems. And I'll put lots of stems, knowing that some of them are going to be completely covered up with the flowers. And I will just keep laying these out for a few minutes. So the skinnier the better when we're trying to create the watercolor effect. This would be too much to put down at one time. The wool will spread, so keep that in mind. So take just the, looks like about 10 strands of wool, 10 fibers. Think of it as if you pulled your hair out, it'd be like 10 strands of hair, and twist it, roll it, and I have a really nice skinny one there, and I'll place it. And my my reference photo does not have leaves, but I wanted to show you leaves because they're often in a floral. So for this, I like to take a shingle, and this is how you pull the shingle with the palm of your hand, and then you're holding it with two hands, and just twist the end and twist the other end, and until the wool is sticking together, and then take the center of it and spread it apart, and you have a nice leaf. And I am going to put that in a few different places, some leaves. And so I will take a shingle again, and this is pretty lightweight, and again twist the ends, and when you twist it and manipulate it like that, the wool sticks to itself. And when I put it on top of the wool, you can already see the base coming up through it, but that's an effect that we're trying to achieve with our watercolor effect, and so that's good. So I'll create some more leaves. I can stop. So another part of painting would be to do shadowing and layers of color. So here's a darker green, and I just pulled out a few wisps. I can tear it to be as small as I want, and I can place some small little pieces at the bottom base of the leaves. I can create a kind of a vein that goes through the leaves down the middle, can curve it right in the middle, and I can take the darker green also and put it underneath one of the stems to create that shadow. And so that's something to remember to do also. If you don't have all the right colors, you can always use black. Another thing we like to use in wool painting is viscose. Viscose is a plant fiber that is very shiny, and whereas wool will be dull, rather dull, the viscose will stay shiny, and you can pull out strands of it or just little sections and place it on top of the wool, and then later when we're agitating the wool with soap and water, the wool fibers come up and grab the viscose, and thereby keeping the fibers on the painting, and the viscose will curl. It looks like they're shrinking, but they actually just sort of curl. The wool shrinks, but the viscose curls. So sometimes we get unexpected results, but I always like to add it because of the sheen. And I'm just following the shape of my leaves a little bit. Okay, I'll do that for a minute. So I decided to create some flowers in these different tones. This will be the main tone, and then this will be used for shading, and even some lighter pinks for the highlights. So if I just take the main tone that I'll use, we have to remember to use very, very light wisp again. And if we did this, made a circle for a petal and put it down, it would felt at the end and just be a big blob. So when we're trying to do the painterly effect, sometimes we need to make sure it's light, and then to create a petal, I might cut it and then spread apart the cut edges, and then lay this down. And I know I had a bud that was up here at the top, and that's too much, so I'll cut it again. And I can shape it and stick it down because the base is wet and it holds on to it. Now, to use our highlighting colors, you want to do the same thing. You can pull and stretch and tear little pieces. You can use the scissors and you'll get a sharper edge. Okay. So I've started the flower and now I want to use some of the other highlight colors. And I don't really want the flower to be red, but it's a darker tone of the pink that I want. So I take very light pieces of it and lay it over the pink. And what will happen, the pink fibers will come up through the red fibers and the red fibers will mingle. And so you blend colors in that way. And so I'm going to lay that down and I'm going to add the highlights with a very light shade of pink. And maybe the light is coming from this direction, so I would put down some light on the top. So I'm going to finish this painting, and I'll do all the agitation with the soap and rolling it and turning this loose wool into a piece of felt, and it's going to shrink. So during class, you're going to go through that whole process and see how that works, but I wanted you to be able to see a piece in progress. So I'll go finish this and then you can see how it turns out. So you can see what we started to do with that flower, and I'll put more flowers on there. You remember we put the viscose on top of the leaves, and you'll be able to see what happens to the viscose and the other design elements.